Justin Bieber just dropped something on Instagram that has the entire internet in absolute chaos right now, and I'm not talking about new music or a casual family photo. This is heavy, this is raw, and this is the kind of statement that makes you stop scrolling immediately because you know something real is about to be said. The pop star who basically grew up in front of our eyes just opened up about being used by the music industry, about feeling shaped into something he didn't choose, and about wounds that don't show up on stage. If you want to know exactly what he said and why everyone is connecting this to certain powerful people in the industry, you need to stick with me because this story is unfolding in real time. And hey, if you're new here and you love getting the tea on what's really happening in pop culture, hit that subscribe button right now because we're diving deep into this. So let me get straight into what Justin actually posted because his words are striking and they're clearly coming from a place of deep reflection and pain. He started by saying he grew up in a system that rewarded his gift but didn't always protect his soul. Think about that for a second. This is someone who was thrust into superstardom as a literal child, someone who had the world watching his every move before he even understood what that meant. He talked about moments where he felt used, rushed, and shaped into something he didn't fully choose. That kind of pressure, he said, leaves wounds you don't see on stage. He's carried anger, and he's asked God why these things happen to him, but he also said that Jesus keeps meeting him in the middle of the pain. The statement continues with Justin quoting scripture, saying that God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He made it clear that he's been through pain that shaped him before he even had the words to name it. He was in a system that took more than it protected. But here's where it gets really important. Justin emphasized that he's not speaking as someone still broken. He's speaking as someone Jesus has already healed. He quoted another piece of scripture saying, "By his wounds we were healed." What happened to him was real. He acknowledged that fully, but it doesn't get the final word. Jesus didn't just help him cope, he said. Jesus restored his identity. He's not a product or what the industry demanded. He's a son. Because he's healed, Justin says he can forgive. Not to excuse injustice, but to make sure it doesn't keep reproducing itself through him. This is such a powerful distinction because he's not saying what happened was okay. He's saying he's choosing not to let it poison him further. Then he made a statement that really caught everyone's attention. He said he doesn't want to burn the music industry down. He wants to see it made new, safer, more honest, and more human. Healing doesn't make him silent, he clarified. It makes him free to tell the truth without hatred. He quoted more scripture about where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Justin wrapped up by saying Jesus didn't just heal him for himself. He healed him so he could change what once hurt him. He didn't come out of this untouched. He grew up inside a system that took more than it guarded. That pain was real, but it doesn't define him anymore. Jesus does. Not someday, not later, but now. He's not speaking as a victim still bleeding. He's speaking as someone restored. Now, let's talk about why this statement is causing such a massive reaction online. A lot of people are immediately connecting this to recent events in the music industry, specifically situations involving powerful figures who have been accused of exploitation and abuse. Without naming names directly, Justin's description of feeling used, rushed, and shaped into something he didn't choose is resonating with people who have followed his career from the beginning. There are videos from years ago that people are rewatching with fresh eyes, moments where young Justin appeared uncomfortable or where power dynamics seemed questionable. The internet has a long memory and people are pulling receipts. What makes this particularly significant is the timing. Justin has been relatively quiet on social media for stretches of time, focusing on his marriage, his faith, and his mental health. For him to come out with a statement this direct, this vulnerable, and this pointed about the industry that made him famous, it signals that he's ready to address things he's kept private for a long time. The fact that he's framing it through his faith journey doesn't diminish the weight of what he's saying. If anything, it shows how deeply these experiences affected him and how much work he's had to do to process them. The phrase that keeps standing out to people is when he said the system took more than it protected. That's not vague. That's a direct indictment of how the music industry operates, especially with young artists who don't have the power or knowledge to protect themselves. Justin was discovered on YouTube as a kid with an incredible voice and undeniable talent. He was signed, packaged, and turned into a global phenomenon before he was old enough to drive. The adults around him were making decisions about his career, his image, his schedule, and his life. And as he's now revealing, not all of those decisions were made with his best interests at heart. What's also striking is his insistence that he's already healed. He's not waiting for justice or validation from the industry to feel whole. He's found that through his faith. But that doesn't mean he's not going to speak out. This is where the statement gets really interesting because he's essentially saying I'm whole enough now to tell the truth without it destroying me. That takes incredible strength. Many survivors of exploitation or abuse stay silent because speaking out means reliving trauma. Justin is saying he's done the internal work to get to a place where he can share his story without it re-traumatizing him. The call for the industry to be made new rather than burned down is also significant. He's not looking for revenge. He's looking for systemic change. He wants the next generation of young artists to have protections he didn't have. He wants an industry where talent is nurtured without souls being damaged. That's a mature, forward-thinking approach that shows he's thought deeply about this. It would be easy and understandable for him to be angry and want to tear everything down. Instead, he's advocating for transformation. Of course, the comments on his post and across social media are filled with speculation about who specifically he might be referring to. People are naming managers, producers, label executives, and other powerful figures who have been in his orbit over the years. Some are pointing to specific relationships that always seemed inappropriate given the age differences and power dynamics. Others are connecting this to broader conversations happening right now about how the industry has historically exploited young talent, especially young male artists who people assume are less vulnerable than they actually are. There's also discussion about why Justin is choosing to speak now. Some people think it's because other dominoes are falling and he feels safe enough to add his voice. Others think it's because he's in a stable place in his life with his wife and his faith, and he's ready to confront this chapter. Still others wonder if there's legal action happening behind the scenes that we don't know about yet. Whatever the reason, the fact that he's speaking at all is significant. What's particularly heartbreaking is imagining what this young kid went through while the world was watching him as entertainment. Every mistake he made was public. Every struggle was fodder for tabloids and late-night jokes. He was going through things that would break most adults, and he was doing it as a teenager with the entire world having opinions about him. And now we're learning that behind the scenes, there were even darker things happening that the public didn't see. The wounds that don't show up on stage, as he put it. His emphasis on forgiveness is also generating conversation. Some people are praising him for taking the high road and not letting bitterness consume him. Others are worried that powerful people will use his language of forgiveness as a shield, as if his personal healing means they shouldn't face consequences for their actions. Justin seems aware of this tension because he explicitly said he's forgiving not to excuse injustice, but to prevent it from reproducing through him. He's drawing a clear line between his personal spiritual journey and the need for accountability in the industry. The response from other artists and people in the industry has been notable too. Some are sharing the post and adding their own messages of support. Others are conspicuously silent, which is also telling. When someone as famous as Justin Bieber makes a statement like this, everyone in the industry sees it. Everyone knows what he's talking about even if the general public is still piecing it together. The silence from certain corners speaks volumes. What this statement also does is validate the experiences of countless other young artists who have come through the industry machinery. For every Justin Bieber whose talent was big enough to sustain a career despite the trauma, there are dozens of others who are chewed up and spit out. There are artists who never made it big, who were exploited and then discarded when they were no longer profitable. There are artists who turned to substances to cope with what they experienced. There are artists who left the industry entirely because the cost to their well-being was too high. Justin speaking out gives voice to all of those experiences. It's also worth noting that Justin is doing this from a position of having made it to the other side. He's established, he's wealthy, he has a platform, and he has security. He can afford to speak truth to power in ways that someone still trying to build their career cannot. That privilege comes with responsibility, and it seems like he's recognizing that. If he doesn't use his position to push for change, who will? The young artists still coming up don't have the leverage he has. They're still dependent on the same systems and the same powerful people. Justin speaking out could genuinely create space for systemic reform. The religious framing of his statement is interesting too, because it positions his healing as something that happened outside of the industry. He didn't find restoration through fame or success or vindication. He found it through faith. That's his personal journey, and it's clearly deeply meaningful to him. But it also means he's not dependent on the industry for his sense of worth anymore. He's found identity outside of being Justin Bieber the pop star. That independence is probably what's allowing him to speak freely now. When your identity isn't wrapped up in the industry, you can afford to tell the truth about it. Looking at the bigger picture, this is part of a larger cultural moment where we're re-examining how we've treated young stars. The documentary about Britney Spears opened a lot of eyes to the way female artists in particular were exploited. Now we're having conversations about how male artists, especially young male artists, have also been vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. The power dynamics, the lack of protection, the prioritization of profit over well-being, these are industry-wide issues that affect artists of all genders. Justin's statement is also a reminder that healing doesn't mean silence. There's sometimes this expectation that once someone has moved on or found peace, they should just let things go and not speak about what happened. But as Justin is demonstrating, you can be healed and still tell the truth. In fact, healing might be what gives you the strength to tell the truth. If he had posted this statement a few years ago when he was clearly struggling more publicly, it might have seemed like anger or bitterness. But posting it now from a place of restoration, it reads as testimony. It reads as warning. It reads as advocacy. The question now is what comes next. Will Justin provide more specifics? Will he name names? Will there be legal action? Will other artists feel emboldened to share their own stories? Will the industry actually make the changes he's calling for? These are all open questions. What's certain is that this statement has started a conversation that's not going away. People are paying attention. The industry is on notice. And Justin has made it clear that he's not going to be silent about what happened to him, even as he continues his healing journey. This is one of those moments where you can feel the weight of what's being said. This isn't celebrity gossip. This isn't drama for entertainment. This is a real person talking about real trauma and real harm. Whatever your feelings about Justin Bieber as an artist or a public figure, this statement deserves to be taken seriously. It deserves to spark conversations about how we protect young talent. It deserves to make powerful people uncomfortable. And it deserves to be the beginning of real change in an industry that has operated the same way for far too long. So, if you've made it this far in this video, thank you for taking the time to really engage with the story. This is the kind of thing that matters beyond the headlines. If you want to stay updated on how this develops and get more deep dives into what's really happening in entertainment and culture, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. And let me know in the comments what you think about Justin's statement and what you hope happens next. This conversation is just beginning, and your voice matters too.